Hey there, welcome back. My name's Simon and this is Mixing Mastermind. So today I want to talk about the topic of gain staging. This is a kind of a topic I've seen a lot of videos about and courses about and various things, and I don't always agree with really what's being said in this kind of context. So I kind of just wanted to give my take really on this whole kind of situation, and yeah, hopefully it's going to be helpful. So this video will be split up into two parts. First part will be gain staging within your DAW. Some of it will be some Reaper things. Some of it will be things that will apply to any DAW. And the second part of it will be relating to gain staging with plugins, which is another thing I've seen a lot of videos on recently. I think there's a bit of misinformation out there, so let's try and clear that up a little bit. So let's just dive right in. First of all, let's talk about gain staging in your DAW. Basically, it's pretty simple, I would say. You really just need to make sure that you're not clipping your master channel here with the audio you have running in your project. So yeah, I mean, we just need to make sure that the gain going into the master is not going into the red here, and then you're pretty much good to go really. So let's just take a look at what I've got here. This is a multi-track I just downloaded from the Cambridge MT website. A song by Adam Buckley is called Drag Me Down. So I just imported this into Reaper. I have all the faders at 0, no panning, nothing else. Everything is just completely clean. I just found the chorus here. I'm just going to press play. It's going to be a bit ugly, just so you know, but just want to demonstrate my point. Here we go. So as you can see there, we are going over 0 here. It's about 8 dBs over, which is something we want to really avoid. So simply the easiest way to deal with this is just to bring our faders down so we have a decent amount of headroom to work with. So when we're mixing, we want to boost things. We can make some moves and still have a bit of headroom to play with. So we're going to just do that real simple. Select everything. Just drag everything down. And that's kind of it really. I pulled it down about nearly 15 dB, and that leaves us with we have around about -10 to -6 dBs of headroom. So there isn't really like a magic number you need to aim for here. It really depends on how confident you are with your workflow and how experienced you are. So generally for me, I normally just make sure my kick and snare, the things that are peaking the highest in my mixes, is around about -6, something a little bit less than that. That works for me. So when I'm mixing, I normally have a mastering chain on as well. And when I push into the mastering chain, I know I don't need too much extra gain from my limiter and various things. And I get my master to the loudest level that I need. But if you're not so experienced, I would say give yourself a bit more room, maybe -12, and you can work with that. I think if you're not working with a limiter on your master bus, then it's not so much of a problem. You can actually see really if you're going into the red here. A limiter is going to like push everything down, and it can be difficult to tell because you won't see it going into the red here. The limiter will stop that. What that means basically is that you could be making moves like you want to hear more snare, so you're pushing more snare and you're not really hearing it. It's not really coming through in the mix. All you're doing really is just pushing more level into the limiter, and the limiter is just pushing back. So if you come to situations like that, what I would do is just bypass all the plugins on your master bus, or at least the limiter, and just to see where your levels actually are, and maybe then just grab everything, pull it back a little bit, and you can keep mixing. Okay, let's talk about a few pitfalls with this kind of approach. One main one is to do with automation. Because our fader is down, let's say at -15 now, when we want to do automation on this channel, we run into a bit of a problem because the resolution at -14 is much less than it is at 0. Let me kind of demonstrate that just so I can show you. Let's say we'll grab this guitar here. If I want to write some volume automation, right, okay, first thing, it depends on the setup here in the preferences in Reaper. This is going to determine the behavior here. So this preference here under editing behavior automation, when adding volume, pan envelope, supply trim to envelope and reset trim. So let me explain what that means. Okay, when this is set to always, see this is -14.2. If I press V for my volume automation level gets dropped to -14.2. Let me put this in the lane down here. And the track volume goes to 0. So this becomes like a trim envelope, and this is our volume automation. So I can, if I have an area selected, I can kind of drag it up and down to get more or less volume, but trying to get like, let's say I wanted just to make 1 dB change, it's kind of tricky to, I've already gone past that. I need to like zoom right in to make small adjustments. Like it's tricky to get because the resolution of this part of the scale is a lot less compared to when we're at 0. So let me show you that again with this preference changed here to never. So I press V for my volume automation. Now this shows on the track volume still -14.2, but our volume automation is now at 0. So it's kind of just reversed the options around. So, but this gives us a lot more. If I want to move 1 dB, it's a lot easier to get to it and make finer adjustments than it is when the level is all the way down here at -15. Another workaround for this is just clip gaining the audio tracks instead of using the volume sliders here. So you just put everything back to 0. We can select, I can press one track, Control A, select everything. I'm just going to grab the item volume on one of these tracks, just pull it down so everything changes now. Let's just see where we are with our master here. Press play again, and we'll try and get ourselves some headroom. Okay, so this also works. Our volumes stay at 0. But now what we can see here in the track is a little bit diminished. It's a bit maybe harder to see some things, but we can also adjust that up and down in a visual way without changing the volume. I use shift and up and down. I'm not sure if that's the defaults or not, but this changes my waveform view doesn't change the level of the audio at all, just the view. So if I need to see more, I can always adjust it up or down. And I think the third option is, well, in fact, there's two more options. The third option is using groups. So we can just add a track, group all these tracks together, call this, I don't know, bass group, and set our, let's put all this back. So this is all of our bass tracks. So we can make some kind of like adjustments to the levels here. Whatever we want, and if we want to change the volume of everything, we can use volume automation on the group level, on the folder track here, parent track, and again just drag it up and down. So that's another option. The fourth option is using VCAs. So we can create a new track here. Let's call this bass VCA. And then we want to select the grouping for, where's the option? Track grouping parameters, Control G. At least that's how I've got it set up. So we can select this as VCA lead and select these as VCA follow. So now we can also press V here. So that's another way of gain staging our tracks. I find this useful, especially on drums, when I have parallel sends on my drum channels and not the groups. So if I want to adjust the volume of the snare group, let's say, if I make a group here for the snares, snare group, but I have, let's say this is a parallel compressor. I won't bother putting anything here, but if I have like a send going to this, if I adjust the volume on the group here, the level of the output of the channel will go down, but my send, assuming this is going to be like post fader send, will not change. So I'll get less of the direct sound and the parallel send will still be as loud as it was before. So if I want to adjust and make sure that my parallel sends are also going down, then I will use a VCA for my snares. And when I set that up, let's say a snare VCA, Control G, let's move this to group 2, make these follow. So we can see here my parallel send here. So if I adjust this down, we're hearing the parallel compression only because this is still sending. This is with both. But if I want to adjust the parallel compression down too, I can use this VCA. This should pull everything down now, down to 0. Okay, so that's a couple of different ways of gain staging in your DAW. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is gain staging within plugins. So this is something I've seen a few videos on recently and left me kind of scratching my head a little bit, really. The points made were, something I didn't quite really understand. So I did a bit of research on this and I wanted to just kind of give my take on it. So basically, what people are saying is that the plugins, certain plugins, especially analog emulations, have a certain optimal level or sweet spot. So your input should be at a certain level on your meter to get the ideal results out of your plugins, which sounds something that we should be doing. But yeah, I wanted to like do some research and just have a look at that. Let's take, for example, this plugin here by Waves. This is like the vComp master bus compressor. And there's a little bit of text here in bold, which is saying that basically, yeah, in the analog domain, the ideal level is between 0 and plus 5 dBu, which translates to the digital domain to minus 22 to minus 17 dBFS. Now, dBFS or dB full scale is what you see on your meters here on the tracks. So yeah, it's kind of saying that, you know, between negative 18 and negative 22 is the ideal level. So it's like, it's also preferable to provide input levels. I think it's very vague, to be honest, and I don't know many people that really do this. I would really sort of just take this with a pinch of salt. It doesn't really say what's good about it or why, so it's kind of hard to say. I think with certain plugins, especially like the analog emulations, hardware units, obviously the input level is important. The gain into any kind of hardware device, especially something with tubes in it or tube emulation, is going to push the output into some kind of harmonic distortion. So that's something to be aware of, and obviously something that might be desirable too. So some units have a particular harmonic characteristics which you might want to utilize in your mixes, and by all means you can use that, push more level into them. Something I can demonstrate there would be, for example, this Neve 33609 compressor by Universal Audio. This has this headroom control here, so what I can even do is take off the compressor, take off the limiter, and we can just drive more input using this headroom control here to get more or less distortion out of it. It's very subtle, but I can demonstrate that real quick. So we pull this all the way back, we're going to get less distortion, and if I drive it more, we'll get more distortion. So add some subtle harmonic distortion there, which is pretty nice. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This kind of concept of making sure everything is at minus 18 or minus 22, or so the plugins sound best. I mean, I don't really see the benefit of obsessing over this. I mean, if it's something that you do and works for you, I'd love to hear about it. It's not something I generally tend to worry about too much, and I would recommend that most people don't really stress about this too much, but by all means try it out and see, you know, read the manuals for your plugins and see what works. Maybe some plugins have different levels you need to look at. So if you want to, I can show you what that means exactly. It's nothing to do with the level on this fader here, but the level going into the plugins. If we wanted to make that minus 22, we would just have to make sure that it's hitting minus 22 here on the level. Pull our clip gain down. Something around about there, I don't know. If that's something you do and you get good results, then I'd love to hear about it. Generally for me, I just want to make sure I'm sending a decent amount of level into my plugins, but that's all I would say about gain staging with plugins. Anything that's not an analog emulation, you shouldn't have to worry too much about the levels in and out of your plugins. For example, this FabFilter Pro Q3 does have an output meter here, and even if I press play and it goes into the red, which happens here, there is no clipping going on. You can read the manual, it specifically says that. It's just there to give you a visual indication of the output of your plugins. So that's pretty much all I have to say about gain staging. I hope that was useful. If there's any questions or you guys have any better ways of doing it, let me know, and see you in the next one. Bye.